Welcome, fellow travelers and adventurers. My name is Diggity DJ Nettie P.
Just call me Ted.
Who's this?
Hey, Ned. I'm Ted.
Oh gosh, I must have kept Russell in my basement too long and got a new podcast partner over here.
I ate all the peaches, and the farmer was so angry. millions of peaches for me.
So many peaches. So essentially, we
that's the end of my story.
Russell got the computer out of his belly, and now he's wearing a translator.
Yeah, I'm wearing a translator. It can only go so far, and even then, it was so much better when I was practicing it at home. I promise. The car, the shower, it was great.
I bet that was exhausting if you had to do that for about 50 minutes.
It's pretty tough, but I figure it out.
So if you guys don't know by now, we are talking about episode 9 of season 1.
My two favorite people.
Can
you guess who they are? Who are your two favorite people?
Oh, man. My wife and my baby Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to say your dog because it goes along with the show. But baby Jesus is a fantastic answer.
If you're talking about live things, then yes, probably my wife and my dog.
Yeah. And also like baby Jesus, like not Leonard Skinner concert Jesus, but like sweet baby in a manger Jesus.
Sweet baby, 10 pound, 4 ounce baby Jesus.
All right, we got to be careful there. We might not. I don't know. Yeah, welcome to Never Ending Adventure. This is, again, a podcast about adventure time and just about adjourning with our y'all.
Yeah.
Whatever y'all are called. I still don't know.
Yeah, we're going to come up with a name for you guys. And I don't know, after this many episodes, you guys are probably going to hate it. And we're going to get some awful feedback for it. So
it's my favorite running joke of this podcast is that there's no name for our audience.
Every time you mention it, you're just like, and you guys who are not named the audience.
Just yet. It was a good episode, Ned. I actually enjoyed this one. Kind of casual episode.
Yeah, you'll see that it fluctuates in between some like casual episodes. They aren't really adventuring. They're just like kind of living their lives. And I think that that's such a breath of fresh air. We don't need bad guys. We don't need huge life-threatening situations every episode, you know?
We almost had bad guys. It felt like the pussycat and whatever the shark monster was called.
So that's Science Cat.
And
I did Google. Shark doesn't appear in another episode, but his name is just Shark, apparently.
Are they like the Team Rocket of the show? Because apparently they show up every day at 4 p.m. and then goes and cuts their head off.
And then they show up again the next day. I love it. Well, it's just like, it's awesome because, again, if you know, the Candy Kingdom's not on fire, the world's not falling apart, Finn can still get out there and swing sword, practice adventuring, and I think it's phenomenal. And it sounds like it's just a fun time for all parties involved.
He was using the like gold sword with the red ruby again. He needs to get a new sword. That thing was looking so rough this episode.
Yeah, it was dinked up in like 3 different places. I did notice that. And it wasn't in the other episode, was it?
I don't think it was. I mean, I guess that's the show's progression. He's been actually out there grinding every day at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And where's Jake been?
And, you know, Jake has been he did say that he practices viola with Lady Rainicorn every day or every Tuesday at 4, was it?
I think it was every day at 4. I think he's pretty dedicated outside of Tree Trunk's endeavors. Jake seems to be pretty on top of that relationship with Lady Rainicorn.
Yeah, and we're going to open up another can of worms later with him and Lady Rainicorn's relationships, because I actually do, not in this episode, but I do have a lot of problems with it. It presents and opens up a lot of flaws in Jake. And even in this episode, kind of my learning and talking about this episode, I feel like every time we do analyze any bit of Jake and Lady's relationship, it opens up this episode for either Jake learning something or us figuring out a new flaw in him.
That's interesting. Jake, this was also like the first episode from his perspective in a sense, or the first like Jake-centered episode. And to what you're saying, like there wasn't anything that stood out to me as like, oh man, Jake is really messing up right here. There wasn't anything that seemed very obvious, like he's being a bad boyfriend. He just gets jealous of what he perceives as the relationship between Finn and Lady Rainicorn, which is what he wanted the entire time, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially he got what he wanted. He didn't like it. But I love that we, in the Ricardio episode, if you haven't tuned into the Ricardio episode, jump back, watch it, listen to our podcast. But we talk about one of Finn's kind of character flaws / developments was him being jealous of Ricardio when Ricardio was hanging out with Princess Bubblegum so much. And Jake kind of like gives him the third degree and was like, you're being jealous. And now we flip-flop and we see Jake being jealous.
It's only natural. We got to learn a little bit about both of our characters, but I'm assuming Jake is also equally pretty young at this point as a dog.
Well, you got to think about human and dog years. So essentially,
does that apply?
I don't know. It's not really directly addressed. But the fact that Jake already has a girlfriend, he's always given relationship advice to Finn. He gives birth later in the show.
Jake gives birth?
He himself gives birth? Or wait.
So he's part seahorse.
Or he also has kids.
Cool.
Later in the show.
With Lady Rainicorn, I'm assuming.
We might as well just drop spoiler drop. Spoiler drop.
Yeah. That's cool. I like their relationship. I hope, there's no animosity toward anything that Jake's done earlier in this first season or whatever. I guess in the eyes of the character, she's an old lady. It wasn't like it was oddly interrelational cheating, whatever, Yeah. So they kind of blew it off and just kept going on with their lives. And we're just kind of in another fun little clip adventure first season episode that doesn't continue on anything. No real arc here.
Well, there's an arc of introducing Lady Rainicorn and how she kind of applies that they're hanging out a lot. That's Jake's girlfriend, but he does still live with Finn. And kind of primarily, they're mostly off on adventures if he's got small dedicated windows for Lady Rainicorn.
Which is interesting. They're early on in this relationship. We're assuming, we don't know how long they've been dating for or how old they are, as you were saying. But as relationships mature, so does the amount of time commitment. So does your freedom, what you're able to do, the friendship with your friends. That can dwindle in a lot of ways. I've forever ago read some sort of a study where you are only capable, and I'm going to totally misquote this because this was forever ago. You're only capable of holding, it's like 8 or 9, maybe 7, like close, real relationships in your life at a time.
I think I heard that same quote, and I think it was even less, that like you can only hold a certain amount of like intense time committed relationships at one time. And I thought it was like 4.
It might be. It seems like whenever I start dating someone or someone around me starts dating someone, you can see the people that, you kind of pick and choose, like who doesn't get replaced, but certainly takes a backseat to the new important person in their life. And in this episode, Jake really doesn't want that to happen to Finn, and he doesn't want to neglect his relationship with Lady Rainicorn. So he tries to combine the time that they're hanging, per the advice of a lovely little worm that just happens to be my lovely of the episode.
Let's drop some lovelies in here because it was mine too.
Give me some sugar, baby.
Was it really? Shelby. It's Shelby. She's so, I don't know, just pleasant. And I kind of like, not empty-headed, but doesn't really read. She reads his emotions so great at first. And she's like, why do you look so down in the dumps? He doesn't respond. And Shelby's just like, no response? Huh. I guess you're good. She just kind of, whatever.
Shelby's awesome, man. I felt Shelby, we see it kind of randomly, and Shelby pops out of Jake's viola. But to give you some context, Shelby is considered the worm that lives in Jake's viola. So Shelby's house is inside Jake's viola, which I think is awesome.
It scared me there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought you were saying like a ringworm type thing. It's not. It's just friend in the viola.
Yeah,
okay.
Just friend that lives in the viola.
Way more pleasant. I'm sorry, I just took the lovely segment and made it kind of gross. Creepy. Way better. Viola, Shelby.
Yes, and Shelby's awesome. And there is something so almost like calming. I don't know if they take the voice and they filter it in this show, or if somebody out there actually talks like, I'm not even going to impersonate it, but if they talk like Shelby, that's
I think
amazing.
we would be amazed. I think we really would be amazed with the level of talent that people that actually know what they're doing, voice acting. Not that we've done any voice acting on this show yet, but I'm sure there is some fans out there that wish we would stop this dream that we have. It's just not coming true, Dad.
That we actually can do voice as well. It's going to be a dead dream after we go back and we continue to listen to the playback on this podcast and be like, wow, we sound like a trash pit.
It's my second favorite running joke of this podcast that we're terrible at voice acting.
We're terrible at voice acting, man. But so you're lovely of the episode, Shelby. We were talking about, at the beginning when Jake is basically trying to decide how in the world to balance the time. He's super upset when he leaves and goes to Lady's house, and she's like, I got to go to bed right when you show up because you came so late. And I mean, dude, it just hits a personal heartstring with me with so much of high school relationships, college relationships, and it's this FOMO mentality whenever there is a dating relationship and friends that you have, and you always feel like you are missing out on either side of the coin.
And you almost always are to some capacity. I think it's a little bit of that. It definitely rings so highly with the high school thing. Like I just kept imagining whether it was my own or my friends, and usually my friends getting into a relationship because I was super cool in high school and didn't date people really. And they would, blow you off or whatever. And in high school, I mean, it's the thing that Finn was doing. You're just like, well, man, like, what the heck? What about the bros? Come hang out with the bros or whatever. But at the time, you don't realize, or maybe you're just selfish and you just don't want it to be that way. But you don't want to lose that friend. It is a desire to hang out with that person. You mean it in the way of, spend time with me. But it comes off as, it's kind of inconsiderate in a sense. You got to let that relationship do what it's going to do and see if it will grow the way that relationships need to blossom.
Exactly. And it's so much about a perspective thing. I know we've talked about perspective a lot on this show, and Finn doesn't understand that Jake is trying to hold a relationship, and he should kind of respect and not go boo to the times when Jake goes, I'm going to go spend time with Lady. But I've experienced that too. When you say, hey, there's a person I care about, I want to go spend time with them. And then your friends turn around and go, I guess you're not hanging out with the boys anymore. Guess you're not you're going to go leave us and go hang out with her. And there's a guilt factor. But I think it's such a good perspective gaining thing, because when those friends get into relationships, which probably inevitably they will,
going to do the same thing.
And but you are going to grow as a person and be like, I remember how much I hurt and how much you gave me FOMO and how much it really did get under my skin. And then when somebody else goes, hey, I got to go hang out with my girlfriend tonight, you'd be like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. Go develop this relationship. This is good for you. You're growing as a person, And Jake, I think, ends up doing that with Finn later down the road. Is Jake, when Finn starts getting girl obsessed, spending a lot of time with the fire princess down the road, Jake's so supportive, man. And so this is probably a really big kind of arc of Jake's support of Finn in his relationships.
Yeah, those Finn friends, as we mentioned in a previous episode, I think they'll be there no matter what. Even if this is a moment in your friendship with them where you're tuning out for a minute, the ones that are still there, they will still be there when you're in this relationship. And it is on you, I will say it is on you when you're in the relationship to be a little intentional, to be intentional with yourself, with your partner, and say, I do need to spend time with these people, or this person or whatever,
Yeah, and say I'm sacrificing adventure time and fighting science cats to go spend time with you, and it's intentional, and that's how it's time spent is a love language for a reason,
So what's going through Jake's mind though as they're going through this, as Finn and Lady Rainicorn are starting to hang out a ton, and they do all these cool adventures together. The social barrier, the language barrier drops, and we're kind of hopping just a little bit, but we'll come back to what happens in the episode.
This is going to be, if you guys haven't picked up on how we record these podcasts, We don't want to just read through the episode and say what happened. We want to digest things, and I've got about 1,000 thoughts spinning around in my head right now, and then we want to share all that. So watch the episode before this, because you're not getting a recap here.
No, not at all. So the fight at Salazon Lake happens, and what we see is the bonding begins. Now Finn and Lady Rainicorn can start to understand themselves, and they choose a lovely old man voice as the way that she's translated over to English or whatever the common language of the people is in U. And then we go and they get rings, they play some video games together, they go to a cloud party, and at the end of the episode, they're on top of the rooftop, like full circle to where like same position that Jake
and Lady were there at the beginning of the episode, and they kind of end the episode. So we can see why Jake's jealous.
He gets very jealous the entire time. Is this episode showing Jake as a dog? Are we seeing him actually be like, this is what happens when our dogs see us get in the relationships and they get jealous of us hanging out with this other person, but dogs just love both people? I don't know. I was just like, maybe this is like a metaphor for our puppies.
It could be territorial, but I think we move past like just a dogism, and we do see that like Jake is jealous. And I feel like it's a trope we see in movies so often of like, my girlfriend's going off, or my best friend is going hanging off with another girl, and or my girlfriend is hanging out with a guy. Does she love me anymore? And so we just see this is an emotion that Jake's never experienced before. And I love like the juxtaposition here of when Finn got jealous earlier, he went in super spy mode, super creep. I'm going to watch her. I'm going to punch Ricardio in the face. And Jake goes into the super immature mode of I'm going to make you jealous back.
Tiffany.
We
get Tiffany.
Tiffany is maybe we were having our segment called most punchable character.
Is he your most punchable character of
easily
the episode?
most punchable character? I don't dislike Tiffany, but something.
Is it the chin hair? Is it
maybe it's the crustache? I think
he feels very grunge to me.
Yeah, but the voice isn't grunge.
That's true.
So it kind of it gives you all those like flip-flop emotions.
Yeah, he flips around and he's like, stop making Lady Rainicorn jealous. He's like, I'm not just making Lady Rainicorn jealous. I'm making you jealous.
Yeah.
It's a boy.
I know. And Tiffany comes up maybe 2 or 3 other times in the show.
I'm kind of happy about that. I thought Tiffany was a silly addition. Just I like the idea of a character that really wants nothing more but to be Jake's best friend.
Yeah, and you start to realize that as we learn more about Tiffany, we learn that Jake obviously has got a lot of other friends. He rolls through his phone, and here we go. For the audience here, the contacts named in Jake's phone are Doug, Todd, Jerry, Dennis, Reggie, Peter, George, Larry, Luke, David, Benton, Mike R, Mike H, Mike A, Gareth, Jennings, Mr. International, Mr. Outrageous, Captain Majesty, the Flying Lettuce Brothers, Pete the Punk, and then finally Tiffany.
This is a dog that loves the bros. He wants nothing more than just hang out, chill with some good old bro time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seems.
And you kind of realize maybe when Finn was kind of in the baby age and Jake was in the dog teenage years, that a lot of these characters come up again. Like Tiffany is part of Jake's past. I'm not going to do too many spoilers, but I think it was Gareth and the Lettuce Brothers were part of like this. They kind of ran with Tiffany and Jake too. And this like they squatted up real good. Jake has an episode where he goes to a Card Wars tournament, and half of the people in this list are in that episode. So I love they keep it like they reference this one back, and that's got to be like season 7, man.
Is he runaway dog? Is that what we're getting?
No, we're not getting to the point where he's a runaway dog. I've given some spoiler drops here, but like I'm not going to spoil that one for you.
Cool. So he's not. Yeah, we don't need to. I'm sure there's something there with Finn's parents going away and Jake kind of coming in as his baby caretaker or something,
Yeah.
I hope Princess Bubblegum is not involved in that, because that just adds an extra layer of creepy to whatever that thing is that they have.
Yeah, we can consider that Russell's theoretically speaking of the day.
We could, but there might be one later on.
Another one later on. Double theoreticals.
Well, this is just me, like top of the hat. That's not a thing. My dome. Just saying what comes to mind.
Off the dome.
There's an actual, theoretically speaking, that I had planned for a little bit later on.
We'll do another one.
But I think we should take a moment and just see what our sponsors have for us.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Oh boy, I get to read that today. Today's advertisement comes from the Bubble Gum. No, wait. Sorry, I got shrimp on my mind. Bubblegum Lab Co. It looks like they're trying to sell some translating devices for understanding what your significant other is truly meaning. Now, why would anyone want that?
Welcome back, everybody.
We're back.
We're back. I'm glad that old man's gone again.
Yeah, finally get out of here, old man.
That, or it is a rainicorn with a translator on, and we need more of that.
It's not me. I'm not doing that
It's
voice.
definitely not Russell. It's somebody. It's a rainicorn that we have here in the studio live with us right now.
Yeah, I know. And Ted is his name.
I did want to take a second because we glazed over the fact. I remember in one of the first episodes we mentioned that Lady Rainicorn speaks Korean, but we never realized that was like a huge barricade, and we notice it now that like nobody actually understands her. It's not like a Family Guy universe where sometimes Brian can understand Stewie and sometimes other people can. It's like a true language barrier.
Did you try to put on your closed caption subtitles?
I did have closed caption on, and it just says speaks in Korean.
Yeah. I tried to. I really wanted to know what she was saying, especially when they were doing the little back and forth jokes.
Well, one factoid, I have that quote here today.
A Nettie's factoid.
Nettie's factoid is when Finn asked Lady to, hey, do you have a joke for me? She says a long phrase in Korean, and we're like, wow, this is like significantly long, and it doesn't, like I said, closed caption for us.
So you've done essentially what I wanted to know during the episode. You've looked it up.
Exactly. So what she says is when she's asked for a joke, I can't think of one, but remember that time we ran through the farmer's orchard naked? We ate all the apples and the farmer was so angry.
Oh, but wasn't she talking about, as an old man, she's talking about peaches, not apples?
And that's why I don't have the direct quote, but essentially when she puts the translator on, that translates, she was saying, and that's, and I ate all the peaches too.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So that's kind of, it like leads in, and she's actually finishing her
story
statement,
from earlier. Yeah.
Her statement from earlier. But I was like, first of all, both of them are already naked. Second of all, I love how they snuck in an adult joke just in Korean.
Because why not?
Because why not? So that was my fun factor of the show. I couldn't get away today without having to talk about
I'm
Lady
really glad you looked
Rainicorn's
that up.
Korean. And then I had some emotions about actually how that leads into the whole episode too. Because essentially Jake is the only one that understands her. And that kind of makes me feel like sometimes with relationships too, we feel like we're the only ones that understand our significant other.
Yeah, the social barrier, especially around your own friend group or a friend group or your family or something. You want them to come in and it to be fluid, but no friendship can ever be fluid right away, or very few are.
Mm-hmm. And first of all, that was a language barrier. But when she gets the translator, it's kind of like maybe a mirror image of what it looks like in life when you guys can relate on one thing. Like if you were to be friends with Jackie and you guys relate on something that you didn't understand each other before about, it makes you kind of become better friends, and you can kind of get over that hump of you're just my friend's wife or you're just my friend's girlfriend, and you start developing your own relationship when you kind of get that commonality,
Finn and Rainicorn certainly look for those things. You can tell they're both trying. They're both like, at the end of the episode, Lady Rainicorn confronts Jake and basically says, like, I only tried to get close to Finn because you really wanted me to. That was the whole point of any of this, remember? And it's true. With someone else's significant other or someone who's new to the group, you do look for those little, little things that y'all have in common or things that y'all both happen to love. And the whole conversation for the first 2 or 3 times y'all hang out might be about that. And so you have shared experiences until you get to know each other a little bit more, and then you pick up on other things that y'all might have in common. It's just a part of building relationships.
Yeah. And I think, well, the first one was the voice. I wanted to mention that, that was the commonality. And the second one was the adventuring, when as soon as they cross the voice barrier, they're like, what do we do next? And when we learn that Rainicorn can basically go on adventures in the opposite of Tree Trunks, like she is a primetime adventurer.
But Finn is just as nervous about it as he was with Tree Trunks at first. He goes, well, is she going to be able to handle herself on an adventure? It's when they're going to get the translator at the bottom of the lake, guarded by the late nights.
Oh, you are right. So that is the first commonality.
It's their first time they go. She basically saves Finn from a swarm of them. You see Jake fighting off one at the top, and Lady Rainicorn goes down there and just spins like crazy and knocks all of them off. And she's got a cool fighting style.
Yeah, she does it.
Great dancing underwater.
Yeah, like when she goes down the last final move, I think is she does a full tornado spin, and it just obliterates all these water. What are they? Probably water sprites.
Water knights.
Water sprites.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought they had a name, but I couldn't find a name. But what's cool about this scene is it's silent. It's completely silent, other than an orchestra. It harks back to the silent films of the 20s, the 10s, the ooze of the 1900s. I mean, it's weird to say that now because we've already had the ooze and the 10s of the 20s or the 2000s.
The 2000s.
But yeah, from when we were a kid, that's what you look back to, the silent films, all that stuff. That's where a lot of Hollywood began and all that. And there was an episode that I was thinking of immediately, as soon as they went down there, of another cartoon, I believe on Cartoon Network, Codename Kid Next Door, which we've mentioned before on this podcast.
Yeah.
There's an episode in the first season called The Fly, and it's simply no words the entire episode. It's from the Fly's perspective. He flies around, and each one of the 5 Codename Kids Next Door have their own adventure with him. One of them hates flies and is grossed out by it. Another one wants to play with it and has a tea party with the fly, whatever. Then at the end, we find it's a spy for the delightful children from down the lane. Our camera, they're zooming in and watching and exploring their fort, essentially. But it just reminded me of that a lot. And I don't know if it's the creators of Adventure Time kind of doing a nod to another show on Cartoon Network. Oh, we loved it when they did that, so we're going to do that as well. But maybe not for a whole episode. But I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would give it credit that, one, it's either, nods to other shows, or 2, it's really fun for people just doing cartoons, and, maybe they're really passionate about it, but they get to flex their movie knowledge. They get to flex their artistic ability and say, I am a really cultured and experienced person in the world of film. And so they get to kind of
explore
nod
the
to
medium.
things. Yeah. Explore the medium and not feel like animation. And then I think that's, again, we're talking about the whole Adventure Time show. And that's a cool thing, is I think we do see multiple mediums. We see multiple shows come up down later seasons where they change the animation for the show. And it just was the animators were probably we just want to flex another muscle. We want to show another talent. We think the Adventure Time universe is not going to be confined to such strict rules that we have to, always have action music and clangs of swords, that they can do a cool silent movie in a darkened blue color, style shot,
Yeah, I mean, thinking about exploring mediums, it makes me, you've been trying to get me to watch the show for forever. It makes me remember part of why I love anime is because that is a medium that is constantly exploring all that they can within animation. And part of the reason why I love animation just in general is that it's just anything you can come up with, anything you can think, anything you can put into your story, you can do just by drawing it. And there's obviously fight scenes, very fluid motion, all that stuff costs a lot more money. And that's why you see very stagnant images in other scenes in animation. But I just love that about animation. And it does make me excited that we see Pendleton Ward and the guys of Adventure Time willing to take those chances so early on in their own show.
Yeah. Usually I feel like they could have just done riskier stuff later on when they know they had the base down. But the fact that we're only 9 episodes through this show and we've already had, one, so much to talk about, which is incredible. And two, we've talked about the animation, the voice acting, the risks they've taken, how this stands apart from a different cartoon show,
Yeah. So they take on the lake adventure. They rescue they get the translating device.
Voice translator, yeah.
And she starts speaking like an old man. And then they start flying on Lady Rainicorn. And that brought up a very interesting question in my mind of what is she made of that makes her able to fly, able to be a rainbow. There's so much there. And I want to introduce what is my segment of Theoretically Speaking right here.
Theoretically speaking.
So, Lady Rainicorn's body. She is able to fly. She explains it to Finn as she's intercepting light beams that are bouncing off of the earth, and she's dancing on them, which is an interesting way of putting that. She's kind of manipulating light in a sense. I'm curious. I'm just kind of ranting in this version of Theoretically Speaking. Is her body made out of light? Is it a prism? Is she, like her skin or whatever, creates a prism which causes the rainbows inside of her, but she's able to manipulate the light, which almost makes me wonder, is she able to convert light into a physical property? Or is she light herself at very high energies, just from watching some videos on YouTube and doing a little bit of legit research, but also just hardly. There are ways in theory that we could take light particles and bounce them off of each other, or it's also possible to have photons move together through super cold rubidium atoms, I believe, and they would behave like a singular molecule.
Yeah.
So in theory, if you had millions and billions of them, you could turn light into some sort of a solid, like a touchable solid.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Is her body light?
Is her body light, or is it some sort of essence of a property of light changing? I think that's a cool concept because, like, I'll bring some cool factoids when we start learning more about the Rainicorn people later down the road. A lot of their culture, a lot of their world is revolved around crystals. Mm-hmm. And I think crystals have a lot to do, with like refracting light, changing it into rainbows, essentially very Pink Floyd-esque, goes through the triangle. But I know that they continue on this whole idea that kind of the physical properties of the Rainicorn world are all kind of based on light and, physics and properties like you're talking about. They keep that theme going.
So the payoff for this, Theoretically Speaking, is very weak. But kind of what you're talking about, really what I was trying to find a bridge to was an elegant weapon from a more civilized time. Her body's not a lightsaber, but like, if she can manipulate light, does that mean like we can have lightsabers in this world? I know there's an image of their like dungeon at one point, or their weapons gallery, and it has like a lightsaber on the wall. But it makes me think maybe we got some lightsabers coming up.
Yeah, I can't actually pinpoint if there are or aren't, but didn't the little water sprites look like they were carrying little lightsabers?
It was some sort of an electric blade for sure, which does get into my Theoretically Speaking is completely blown up if your thoughts on lightsabers are that they're made out of plasma and plasma waves and the manipulation of magnetic fields and whatnot. That kind of makes what I just said completely irrelevant, but I was trying not to get there.
Well, it's not irrelevant for me because it's very much above my pay grade, so I enjoyed that thoroughly.
Awesome. Well, that was Theoretically Speaking, and I'm glad we went there.
I'm glad we went there too, man. Well, on a serious note, I want to end kind of talking about, we talked a lot about the jealousy and the FOMO of relationships and everything like that. But I wanted to see what you kind of thought in terms of like jealousy. We talked about high school relationships and the FOMO aspect of it. But the jealousy portion I thought was very thought-provoking, I would say, because essentially Jake did get what he wanted. He wanted his buddy and his girl to be friends. But I've been a little bit there before when you're early on in a relationship and you're bringing your girlfriend over to your house and your roommates are hanging out with them and they're hanging out with your friends and they start like laughing and giggling with your friends a little bit. You get a little heated and you're like, no, that's my special time. That's my
these are my friends.
These are my friends. And kind of more like you get a fear that your girlfriend's going to like your friends more than you do. And it's such a thought-provoking, like, how self-confident are you in yourself that you think that your girlfriend would just leave you for your friends,
Yeah, you might be. I'm not sure what the question was there, but I feel like you might be. Are you speaking from personal experience? Is this something that you have experienced specifically with the significant other from your high school days?
I would say, it was, like from high school days, I saw more jealousy, even when it was with like hanging out with friends or spending time with other people, even if I was or wasn't friends with them. And then I realized as I matured, that slowly chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. And I don't know if it was self-confidence or just like pure like confidence in my love with that person, that the jealousy chips away. And I think that it's a cool thing to look at this episode and say, Jake is getting over this instance of jealousy. He's developing. We've only talked about Finn's development in this show,
I almost feel like you're getting at how easy it is to project thoughts onto other people or project your feelings onto someone else.
Yeah.
You know, it's the jealousy that isn't truly present in their minds and Finn and Lady Rainicorn's minds. They are just having a good time and trying to bond and trying to find those things that they have in common. But Jake almost entirely forgets about why he wanted them to get together in the first place, so that they could spend, Shelby tried to convince them, let them spend time together and then y'all can all be friends as one. I think there's certainly, as long as there's a separation there, right? I think you don't want, and I'm speaking kind of out of my butt here, you almost don't want your significant other to just 100% just be a buddy in the friend group and y'all all of a sudden are only hanging out with those friends and all that. And in high school, I could see that as being very much a reality because you, for a limited time, had to ask your parents to go on, like, drive you on the date.
Yeah.
And your parents had to be there. And it was a lot easier to just go, yeah, let's meet up with our friends. And you're like dating as y'all are hanging out with friends. And so I could see, not from my personal experience, because honestly, I just didn't date a ton in high school, but I could see how that would be something that someone would come, that would be where you would come to at the end of the day or whatever, after hanging out with your friends and your girlfriend a lot.
Yeah. Where if you don't create the intentional time, and I thought that was kind of leaning, up to my main point, that there's a delicate balance with all relationships. And honestly, it's the friend group aspect. We have a little for the listeners out there. We all have a thing we did pre-lockdown, and you can't hang out with all your friends anymore, called TNDC.
TNDC, baby.
Tuesday night drinking club, and it was just friends getting together on a Tuesday night, potluck style. Sometimes we'd go out to a restaurant or something, but.
The name was great, though. I will say I love the very first time we hung out. The name lived up to the name, but
the expectations.
But every other time we hung out, there was almost no drinking at all.
Yeah, but and that's why it just kind of came friends hang. But if we did that every day, if it was we never had a time to hang out as bros, one-on-one, and if I only spent time with my wife when I was around other people, there's just a lack of that emotional connection. There's a lack of the depth of growing. And so I think it's actually kind of cool that even Finn and Lady got to go spend kind of some time on their own, because I feel like that's where even friendships, even relationships grow.
One-on-one time.
But we need to also, on the flip side, but that's exactly what I'm saying, is that the one-on-one time is so important for all friendships. and should be cherished and shouldn't be. We shouldn't feel like we have FOMO when we're hanging out one-on-one with a person, you know?
I think you should be intentional about it. Honestly, I mean, I personally love the one-on-one hang or whatever, almost prefer it over hanging out with groups of friends. You need to mix it up or whatever, but certainly it allows you to open up with that other person. It allows you to grow. It's the iron sharpening iron. It's the next level, or taking that friendship and really testing it. Can you sit next to this person, whether it's a friend or a significant other, alone and talk and have no distractions for an hour, 2 hours? I mean, especially when you're dating someone, you will have multiple dinners where it's just you two, and you got to have a conversation about something, or else y'all are just sitting there and what are you doing, you know?
Yeah, or else you just have a boring relationships, really, with everybody.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone aspires for that. And relationships are hard, and you go through those peaks and those valleys, but the one-on-one time is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. My last question for you, in a hypothetical posed question way, and on a fun note, is if we were hanging out, who would you punch in the face
Of our friend group?
if no. If
Oh
they
gosh,
were
please don't.
if I was like, hey, I'm calling up Tiffany, and then you were like, no, I'm gonna punch you in the face. You get away from my friend.
So we're hanging out. It's
Yeah.
me and you.
Yeah.
And I got to punch somebody.
Yeah, and you're like,
And you can't
us-
figure that out.
It's us hanging out.
Yeah, so
and
I'm
you're
punching
like,
you, Ned. I'm not
okay.
punching myself. It's just us.
No, I'm saying a third party comes up. I'm trying to
we get to invite a
I'm trying
third
to invite
party.
a third party in, and you're like, this is our friend time. And because Finn just rage faces on Tiffany at the end for trying to hang out with Jake.
Man, that is... I've never punched somebody. I am so non-confrontational that just the idea of that bothers me so much.
Yeah, the idea
Someone
of punching
fake, I guess?
someone.
Yeah, I don't want to punch anybody. I mean, a fake character I'm sure I could come up with. I mean, obviously Ricardio, but someone that I would actually want to punch in the face.
We don't have to name anybody. I just thought that was a great question.
I love it.
Like,
yeah.
you know,
Smash Mouth.
Smash Mouth.
I want to smash their mouth.
I want to smash
it's
their
in
mouth.
the name. I mean, I want to be an all-star and smash their mouth while I'm walking on the sun.
Yeah, just like somebody's so lame that if I tried to replace you with them, you would have to punch them in the face.
Or the bare naked ladies. I actually really love 1 week, and then I pissed off Michael this episode.
Yay!
It's been done.
It's been done.
My third favorite running joke of the podcast: pissing off the engineer.
Yeah, he's gonna make you sound like crap this episode.
I never sound like crap, Ned. You fool.
Man, I love it. I love it. Well, do you have any other fun facts about this episode? I feel like we got, even more good talks, life lessons, some conversations that we always have. I thought we got some great stuff out of this one.
We got it. I really love the rings. We talked about this during the advertisement as the old man was babbling about Bubba Gump shrimp or something like that. I really love the rings. I wish they would dive more into that. I feel like we see, especially like in Tolkien, and there are many other fantasy like novels and movies and whatnot, where a ring plays such an important role in whatever it is. And those rings were so cool. They each had a little individual power, but then for some reason when they used them all together, they turned into this really like awesome blue flame. And then I just love the casual like, oh, I guess they're cursed.
I guess they're cursed, and it was next scene.
Yeah, next scene, the rings are off.
I know, it's like missed opportunity. I felt like we could have gone on a whole different tangent next episode on Finn and the cursed magic rings.
I want my own magic ring. Like even if it's cursed, even if I can't take it off, if I could have just like a little, whether it's like a little flame for like a lighter, that could be pretty dangerous. Or like a little water gun would be funny for pranks on people. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, you get some. I will. It's not a spoiler drop, but for all of my longtime fans out there, there's an episode coming up, probably not too far down the road, where Jake and Finn find a magician's like ward or like, I don't know, monastery, basically.
Cool.
And they have to go through some trials, and every time they complete a trial, they get a star and an extra magic power. So I feel like if you're
seen that episode. I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if you are excited about like 10 magic rings, then you'll be excited about 50 extra magic power
good
episodes.
episode too.
Yes. And if you guys haven't seen it, we will get to it hopefully sooner than later, hopefully quickly.
What are we talking about next week? Do we know?
I don't think I know it. I don't think I've skipped ahead and seen what we're talking about next week.
All right. Well, we'll let y'all know on social media, which just, you got to follow us. You got to follow us on Instagram is probably where we're going to be the most active. And then, you can get on the TikTok and see what I'm cooking up over there.
Yeah, use your old man voice when you talk about the TikTok.
Oh, you kids and your freaking musically turned TikTok app. I'm like a really hip old man. I know what happened.
Yeah, no, I was like, I still say the TikToks and
the TikTok,
the Facebooks and everything like that.
Well, give us a follow. Please review us on Apple Podcasts, and we'll be back next week talking about another episode of this cool show.
You can give us however many stars on this episode that you thought was Russell's old man voice. Was it a 5-star? Was it a 2-star? What was it?
I'm a 5-star. Give me a 5-star, please.
Give us a 5-star. We would love
Turn
it.
it in the bush.
Turn it in. But yes, I'm DJ Nettie P.
And I'm Russell Tyndall.
And thanks for listening, guys. In a world where one friend and another friend and another friend make a podcast, a bunch of people got on Spotify and listened. Never Ending Adventure Cast was hosted by Ned and Russell and engineered by Michael. Coming this summer.